I know, a little late to the party, but I just want to say the indie presence at the Game Awards was a pleasant surprise. We had Inscription, Chicory, A Colorful Tale, The Artful Escape, Before Your Eyes, Boyfriend Dungeon, No Longer Home, Loop Hero, Death's Door, Valheim, Sable, and these weren't just all part of the indie categories. They were contenders against bigger budget games, which was awesome to see. And then, in a double whammy, the one that took both awards for both indie categories was a game that had incredible visuals and took us back to that early 2000s era of action-adventure titles. I'm of course talking about Kena, Bridge of Spirits. I first heard of Kena during Sony's State of Play 2021 presentation, and got the impression this was only for PlayStation. A common trend for me, as I didn't have one growing up, and it made me miss out on other action adventures like Jak and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, Sly Cooper, and a lot more. But even from my limited time playing some of these at a friend's house, I always love these types of games, and I could just tell Kena was gonna fit right into that genre. Kena was developed by Ember Lab, a small studio who specializes in animation and digital content. Up until 2016, they created animations for big companies like the Coca-Cola Company, Hisense, and the MLB. They also created one of my most favorite animated shorts from one of my most favorite games of all time.
What?
Anyway, after the Game Awards hype and hearing it was actually on PC, I was more than excited to try it out. So if you're up for some spiritual enlightenment, come join me as we take a look at Kena, Bridge of Spirits. As the title implies, Kena takes place in a world that is full of spiritual beings, as well as people who try to respect the natural order of things. One ritual they perform is when someone passes away, they're crafted wooden masks to honor and help them cross over into the next life. This usually works, unless the spirit feels regret about their passing. In those cases, they'll linger and become a dangerous entity that needs to be dealt with. This is where a spirit guide comes in, individuals who have a strong connection with spirits and help them find peace to move on to the afterlife. Ours is Kena, whose journey towards the sacred mountain shrine has taken her to a desolate village overrun by some sort of corruption. Red, of course, as is the standard. Kena learns that in order to reach the mountain shrine, she must first help a few of these restless spirits. These characters' backstories were tragic to discover as expected, but heartwarming to help resolve their inner conflicts. Each one you help is a good person at heart whose regrets stem from failing to care for someone else. So it was always satisfying to help them find peace. And it was bittersweet to say your final goodbye to them as well. As the game mentions, the path of a spirit guide is a lonely one. But not entirely. Along the way, you encounter these cute little creatures dubbed the Rot. These spirits happily join you on your adventure to help cleanse the corruption, level up, and most importantly, keep you company. From the moment you find them, these guys always do silly stuff to brighten your day. It was always fun to see them pop up all over the place, especially as I enlisted more and more into my personal armada. The best part is they're customizable. That's right, prepare yourself for the best feature ever to be added to a game. Yay! Now I know what you're thinking. Yes, the game looks gorgeous. Yes, the animation is wonderful. And yes, it does feel like you're playing in an animated film. But let's get specific. First of all, the world. It is a wonderland of lush greens, dazzling blues, and natural landscapes, a style I'm personally fond of. Most of the game takes place in a forest-like setting, so you'll be seeing that kind of scenery a lot. Although it does vary when exploring cave systems or traveling across the more open farmland. Either way, there were plenty of times I had to stop and just take in the view. As for the level design, it does admittedly feel linear during some segments, but that's not a fault. Rather than giving you 10 different ways to get to a location, Kena ensures the singular path forward is an enjoyable one, with its aforementioned beautiful visuals and even some secrets tucked away. Which is another clever way of making you closely observe and appreciate the level itself. There is a healthy amount of venues to explore and things to uncover. The village is the prime example. For you completionists and explorers, you'll be spending a lot of time uncovering all it has to offer. Last but not least, the animation was stellar. This was the eye-catch and what made me want to play this game as soon as I saw the trailer. The gameplay looked flashy as hell, especially the combat. It felt like I was watching an industry-standard animated film, which you were sometimes, but I mean for the rest of the time too. when you're climbing up ledges, swimming, and just chilling with your rod pals. There's a lot of life the animation brings to the table. Even the more subtle ones like the swaying of the grass or floating spiritual particles. It never fails to give you this sense of energy that's contained in the world. Though I heard some people had a gripe with Kana's jog animation, which I'm a tad unclear on.
I don't know, this seems like a pretty natural jog to me. What?
Now, opposed to how everything looks innocent and animated, Kana's combat offers a surprising amount of challenge. Enemies are aggressive and respond to your attacks. You constantly have to be vigilant of the battlefield, and there are many moments of on-the-fly decisions you need to make. It's real-time action at its finest. So what do you have to work with? Well, your core moves consist of light heavy attacks, dodge roll, shield, and a parry. You can then learn enhanced version of those moves to give you that much more diversity of your main attacks. But the interesting abilities are the rot actions. These allow you to perform flashy rot ability attacks, enhanced versions of special abilities you learn. Functionally, they're powerful. Visually, they add this extra to combat, and they just look so cool. And you feel so powerful pulling one of these bad boys off. Especially when you end the fight like a final smash. So satisfying. Now, rot actions aren't infinite, and you'll need to build up your rot meter in order to use them. This is a key aspect that makes combat all the more engaging. Even healing costs a rot action, meaning you'll have moments deciding between dunking on an enemy for lots of damage, or playing it safe and healing up. For real-time combat systems, these types of on-the-fly decisions are how you engage the player. When things got tough, it made the stakes high, and the payoff that much better when you manage to finish off a close fight. There's also a nice sense of progression from all the different combat scenarios you encounter. Whether a new enemy is introduced or an interesting combination of enemies are thrown your way, there never felt like any repeat experiences. Most of the time, it was due to the enemy combinations and how you'd have to respond with different special abilities. Sometimes even the environment played a factor. One memorable fight I had was a bunch of flying range enemies from a high treetop area. One stray step and hello gravity, but one false move and I get blasted. It was insane. So taking all this into account, how's the difficulty? It's tough, that's for sure. The difficulty levels affect enemy aggression, but they also basically set how much you have to think during a fight. For instance, I played on the second hardest Spirit Guide difficulty, where you can only heal from whatever healing plants are around in each battle, and you can only build your rot meter by dealing damage. This made it so I couldn't just kite the enemy, I had to tactfully get a few hits in if I wanted to even think about healing or triggering a rot ability. The enemy's aggression levels also play an important role. They're not the type to wait around for you to attack. It forces you to keep an eye on the entire battlefield and utilize your moveset accordingly. They'll catch you off guard if you're not careful, but you always have some move to counter back with. For real-time combat fans, this feels like an appropriate challenge. For the most part, bigger enemies and bosses were difficult in a good way. It was scenarios like these that highlight how Kana doesn't outright tell you the correct approach. If anything, this makes most combat feel like a puzzle that you have to analyze and strategize about. It's really testing your understanding of your abilities and being able to identify when to use them. I wound up appreciating this a lot because it helped you get better and have more fun with creating those flashy combat scenarios Kana desperately wants you to experience. If you compare my early game combat to my late game, you can see how much more stylish and action-packed these fights become.
The combat in Kana is rock solid and polished. If I had to choose just one thing to get you to play the game, it would be that. It is that much fun. And you know, now that I've had a second to sit here and strategize, I think it's time to get back out there.
So is Kana perfect? Well, considering this was Ember Lab's first shot at making a game, you can't expect there to not be some hiccups. Like when you're exploring and you try to jump onto a big rock, and you can't. I guess it's just not built that way? There's also memories you find from spirits you help, but some of them are harder to pinpoint, especially in the second area. I got 18 hours in before realizing the rod does this little hop animation to indicate one is nearby, which was confusing because they already pop up when you're walking around, so it wasn't obvious this was an indicator of a memory. And even though these memories were optional, I still wanted to find them, as they strengthen the story for the spirits. These hiccups are just that, hiccups. 99% of the time, I was in awe of what Kena accomplished. Like how major mechanics of the game stuck to the overall theme of spirits. It was never an obvious moment of the game giving you something because it was a game. Instead, it always contextualized what you were doing towards this theme. For instance, you don't just unlock new abilities, you're taught them in the form of cutscenes from people who help you tap into your inner power, or during intense sequences where you're pushed to unlock them yourself. When you go to upgrade your rot abilities, the currency is karma. You're rewarded with advanced techniques because the rot recognize you're helping the spirits. That is just such a cool detail. And want to know how you upgrade your health? You meditate, which has been proven to improve one's overall mental and physical health. I can't. I just can't. I repeat this in all of my videos, and I'll say it again. I love the thought that goes into making every aspect of your gameplay stick to a theme, and Kena does a great job focusing on theirs. Focused. That's a good word that describes Kena. Nothing feels padded. The time between story and gameplay is balanced in a way that keeps you wanting both. There's a nice groove between intense combat and exploring the world, allowing you to appreciate its beauty. Even the number of characters you interact with all serve a purpose towards Kena's journey. Nobody exists to just fill the space. They all have their unique role to play in the overall story. Every aspect of the game exists for a reason and contributes to this overall experience in a clean way. So if you want an adventure full of beautiful visuals, intense combat, and a heartwarming story, Kena Bridge of Spirits is right up your alley. Or if you just want to see the rot dance on your head, that's totally fine too.
Ah.